The August 12th, 2024 Tualatin City Council meeting. I'll go ahead and call our meeting to order. Our first item on the agenda tonight is the Pledge of Allegiance, and that'll be led by Councilor Reyes tonight.
Please stand. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. That brings us to announcements, and our first announcement is the Tualatin Science and Technology Scholarship. We have Jerry Ann and Councilor Sacco. Welcome, Jerry Ann.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Unfortunately, it looks like our students were not able to join us tonight. Sometimes, you know, as happens in the summer after graduation, things come up, and unfortunately, it looks like neither of our students were here. But I'm very happy to join you to recognize these two students receiving the scholarship tonight. It's really meaningful to both of them, and I really appreciate council support.
All right, thank you, Jerry Ann. It is my pleasure and honor to announce the Tualatin Science and Technology Scholarship winners for the 2024-25 school year. This year, the city is awarding two $500 scholarships. This year's scholarship recipients are Karis Gates and Miguel Angel Aguilar. We had two deserving candidates this year, and so the scholarship committee decided to split the available scholarship funds between them. The students who applied have impressive grades, but they had also been involved in many kinds of extracurricular activities and volunteer work in the community. It was very inspiring to see the applicants of intelligent, hardworking, and community-oriented young people who live right here in Tualatin. Karis Gates graduated from Tualatin High School in June with hopes of becoming a nurse. She has been inspired by both health experiences in her family and her father's hard work as a paramedic, and she hopes to advocate for healthy equity, addressing the diverse needs of patients with empathy and cultural sensitivity. In addition to her academic success and participation with the school newspaper and yearbook, she actively participated in track and field and cross country all 4 years, including serving as team captain. Karis' letters of recommendation described her as having a big heart, strong work ethic, and as the type of human who lights up the room wherever she goes. She plans to study nursing at George Fox University. Her parents are Katie Gates and Nathan Gates of Tualatin. Miguel also graduated from Tualatin High School this year, balancing his school and work with his passion for music. Miguel was a trombonist in pep band and jazz band. He received the Most Improved in Band Award and the Avid Award. His letters of recommendation spoke about Miguel's pride in how he helps his family while also finding a successful path in school. Miguel is committed, energetic, and compassionate with exceptional character traits. He plans to attend Portland State University, where he will study mechanical engineering, with hopes of working in the automotive design industry. His parents are Lionel Angel and Anna Aguilar, both of Tualatin. The scholarship committee consists of Cindy Hillier and myself, representing the Tualatin City Council, Bunko Camus of Pacific Metal Company, representing the Tualatin Chamber of Commerce, and Jill Zerschmied, representing the Tiger Tualatin School District Board. The criteria considered in selecting the scholarship recipients include academic standing, field of study, extracurricular activities, and community activities. So we are happy to recognize Karis and Miguel for their many achievements and are pleased to be able to help them reach their academic goals. So we congratulate them tonight.
Both students will receive a $500 scholarship to support their academic year.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And they'll get their certificates and everything later? Yeah. Okay. All right. That brings us to item number 2, in announcements. That's Tonga Day Proclamation. And I believe Mr. Fusatua, you're going to come up and discuss Tonga Day a little bit. Welcome. Yep. Yep. Yeah. There you go.
There we go. Thank you. And Mr. Mayor, City Council Chair, City Council members, I want to give you my sincere appreciation on including our Tongan community in your agenda today. My name is Kolini Fusitua. I am from the tiny island nation of Tonga. And next weekend, this coming weekend, the 17th of August, over at Gateway Discovery Park, we're going to be celebrating our community festival. It's called Tonga Day. We started this in 2017, and then we had to take a break during COVID. We resumed last year just to get it going again because we kind of lost momentum due to COVID. And then this year, we're hoping, to pick it up and, hold that momentum that we had. And we appreciate that the city of Tualatin is supporting Tonga Day. Mr. Mayor, I want to invite all of your members, City Council, and everybody in your city to join us this coming weekend, Gateway Discovery Park. Here in Tualatin, our first church within our community was here, just behind Freddy's, over in that area. I was young, I went to high school, so I don't remember too much back then. So Tualatin is no stranger for us. We've been here since the early 80s, and we're still here, and we appreciate your gesture in including us in your agenda and in your city. Thank you, Malo.
Thank you. With that, Councilor Brooks will read the proclamation.
Thank you, Kalini. Proclamation declaring August 17th, 2024 as Tonga Day in the city of Tualatin. Whereas Tualatin has seen an increase in Pacific Islander community members with more than 300 counted in the 2020 U.S. Census, and whereas Tonga is an island kingdom in the South Pacific where many have migrated from seeking work and educational opportunities, with current estimates that about half of all Tongans live abroad, and whereas Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders, including Tongans, comprise about 5% of Oregon's population, and whereas Tongans have been part of the Tualatin community for many years, with Oregon's first Tongan church sited here in Tualatin from 1981 to 1982 at the residence of Sion Fatua'a, and whereas Tongans celebrate their cultural identity through oral literature, singing, and dancing, and whereas the Tonga Day 2024 festival will feature a full day of elegant cultural performances, arts and crafts, jewelry, island attire, and more, celebrating Pacific Islanders' culture and helping families maintain their traditions. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the City Council of the City of Tualatin, Oregon, that Tualatin recognizes the 17th day of August 2024 as Tonga Day, We encourage community members to join our Pacific Islander neighbors at Gateway Discovery Park in Portland, it's in Northeast Portland, for the Tonga Day Festival, introduced and adopted this 12th day of August, 2024. And I just want to thank,
Yep.
yes,
Thank you.
I just want to mention too, for anybody that's interested, these flyers are out in the hallway, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. That's announcement number 3 is a new employee introduction. Wyatt Bean of the city manager's office. He's a management intern, and Megan will do the introduction, even though he's chat with him for quite a while tonight.
Yeah, he's quite chatty. That was a little bit sarcastic, Wyatt. Mayor, members of the City Council, I am Megan George, the Deputy City Manager, and I am here this evening to introduce Wyatt Bean, the management intern in the City Manager's office for the summer. So Wyatt is a double duck, which is a new term I'm learning. He got his undergraduate at the University of Oregon in psychology and political science. He was a double major, and he decided to continue on to get his Master of Public Administration degree. He has also completed internships with our neighbor to the south with SMART in Wilsonville, as well as Jensen Strategies, which is a firm that does recruitments for local government in Oregon. And his first day with Tualatin was July 1st, and he'll be with us into September before returning back to Eugene. So some of his projects include taking a look at some of our ordinances, conducting research and comparative analysis for cities in the area. He attended National Night Out last week with Betsy in the Las Casitas neighborhood. You saw him at the dais this evening taking minutes for the work session. And kind of a mishmash in his time here. So in my experience, Wyatt is extremely organized and by far the most productive person I have met. I'm a little jealous. He's done great work so far in Tualatin, and I'm sure he'll do great work with wherever he lands after graduation. So thank you for helping me to welcome Wyatt to Tualatin.
Welcome. Anything you'd like to say? You gotta turn your mic on, though.
I just want to thank Megan, obviously, and the city more generally for this opportunity, just to get greater insight into just how city government works. I definitely see this experience guiding me and informing me in my future career decisions, for sure.
Well, thank you for joining us doing your internship here, and wish you the best in your future endeavors. We've had former interns become assistant city managers throughout the state, so you can take this and run and soar to the top. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We have another new employee introduction. Lindsay Marshall will introduce Jake Hush from the Public Works Management section. Welcome. Welcome, Jake.
You good?
You're good.
Hi. Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Lindsay Marshall, a management analyst in Public Works, and I am here to introduce our other management intern, Jake Hush, who started with us in Public Works on July 8th, which I think is the Monday after Wyatt started. But Jake is coming to us as he's going to enter his 4th year at Oregon State University, environmental economics and policy major. And before coming to Tualatin, he's already had quite a robust work history. He's worked at Specialty Technologies, which is Specialty Analytics, which is a environmental testing lab, and then Focal Technologies, working on procurement and project management. He's also the youngest member ever on the Marion County Water Board, so he's already had quite a bit of experience in local government. We hired Jake to look at the water conservation and management plan for the city, which he is super interested in, and we have been so thrilled. And I have to say, Megan and I really hit the jackpot on her interns, because he is also one of the most productive people I've ever met. We're like, hey, Jake, we have this thing. And like 2 days later, he's like, I'm finished. I'm like, wow, you're amazing. He's been dipping his toes into everything, including the conservation plan as his main project, but he's been sitting in on our management meetings and doing some event planning with our other National Night Out event over on 108th at the ASR. And We went on a field trip last Friday with the American Waterworks Association, our local chapter. I was trying to fend off the poachers from taking Jake right away from us because he's been so awesome, and everyone can see how special and great Jake is and what a cool person to work with. So we're super excited to have him here until mid-September or so when he also returns back to school. So thank you for being here, Jake.
Jake, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, council members, for having me. I've been really enjoying my job so far. This has been a fantastic experience for me. It gives me a completely different side of working for government instead of being on a board and advising staffers. I get to be one of those staffers. And thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you again, for you and Wyatt, helping us out with these projects and spending your summer with us. Any future plans on where your career is going to go?
I don't know yet, but maybe I go into getting my water distribution certifications and do that for a few years, or potentially go into consulting for sustainability or preferably water systems itself.
Yeah, no future in that. Water, man. Well, congratulations again. Thank you for helping us out and joining the team here in Tualatin.
Thank you so much.
All right. All right, so that brings us to public comment. Public comment is opportunity for folks here in the room and in Zoom to provide comment to the city council on items that are not on tonight's agenda. Please keep your comments to about 3 minutes. I'll do folks who are in the room first, and then I'll move to those folks who are in Zoom. And I've got a list of folks who are signed up. Once I get through the people who are signed up, you don't have to necessarily be signed up, but I'll give preference to those folks that have signed up first. So first person up is Steve Titus. Welcome, Steve. Make sure to turn the microphone on. You're a pro at this, so.
I've been watching. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. My comments today have to do with the Lamb Research Tux expansion project, which I think may become AR 24-0003. Last week, I received a text message from a neighbor who mentioned this project. It's my first awareness, and a request to attend the TSP meeting to be held August 8th in the library. I found out that McKinsey had held a neighborhood meeting on June 10th, but I didn't receive the notice. I live more than 1,000 feet from the property in question, and that explains it. At the TSP meeting, staff explained the project hadn't been accepted to the city yet, which is why it's not on the city website. They also confirmed my understanding of the notice requirements, 1,000 feet, and include all homes in a subdevelopment if any homes are within the 1,000-foot radius. Additionally, they emphasized they only do what's required. The proposed development will clearly impact all of River Park's CIO with additional traffic on Tualatin Road. In preparation for this meeting, I took a look at the mailing list for the June 10th meeting. Using Google Maps, I investigated where 1,000 feet might extend. I focused on the area around Southwest 106th and Southwest Kiowa. On the north side of Kiowa, I found that 10525 was mailed a notice, while their immediate neighbor to the east was not. The same goes for the south side of Kiowa. 10500 was mailed a notice, while their immediate neighbor to the east was not. I had found the boundary between Jeffwood number 2 and Jeffwood number 4. The mailing was split in the middle of the block. City staff is following the letter of the code, but I would say not the spirit of its purpose. I'm here tonight to ask council for all future neighborhood meetings to have staff extend the notification of this proposed project to all residences of River Park CIO. If you cannot honor this request, I hope for all future meetings you will at least ask staff to create notice of meeting signs and place them at all of the residential intersections along Tualatin Road from Cheyenne Way to and including the driveways at the apartments at Tualatin, Woods, and Woodbridge. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it. All right, so that brings up Sandra. Welcome. What's that? Yes. That's how you say it? Wow. Welcome.
And I'm not on. There we go. Okay, I said thank you for allowing me to be here. My name is Sandra Spatz Wisnakis. I served in the United States Marine Corps Reserve from 1966 to 1969. I served in Vietnam from 1968 to 1969. It was the first time the United States Marine Corps sent women to serve in a war. I'm here to support Joe Galloway's and Ben Richardson's request to place the Wings of Freedom statue and a plaque honoring the service of women in Tualatin. I understand Wings of Freedom's and the plaque's symbolism, and I know why women serve. Women serve to ease suffering, seek peace, protect freedom, and preserve the future. Women want peace in their lives and in the world. Wings of Freedom embodies these aspirations. At the end of their days of service, women return to their communities and blend, raising families, worshiping as they choose, and volunteering in many causes, anonymously or publicly. Here are examples of 4 of these women I know personally. Linda Vandavander, Vietnam veteran Army nurse, survivor of her service in Vietnam, but casualty of the toxin Agent Orange. Linda bravely testified at U.S. Senator Arlen Specter's hearings after the war, bringing visibility and voice to Agent Orange's pernicious effect. Brigadier General Wilma Vaught, United States Air Force, retired and a Vietnam veteran. Wilma was a trailblazer during her 28 years of military service. Wilma received the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2022, following her dogged and successful efforts to create a repository of women who served. The repository is known as the Military Women's Memorial. It's located at the gateway to Arlington National Cemetery. Claire Starnes, another Vietnam veteran, served in the United States Army. When Claire returned, she blended until she realized authors in Hollywood erased women veterans from war stories. Veteran service organizations like the Veterans of Foreign Wars and the American Legion denied women Vietnam veterans membership and directed them to join their auxiliaries. Noted also by Claire was the absence of statistics of the number of non-nurse women who served in Vietnam. Claire founded Vietnam Women Veterans and personally tracked down, then organized a convention held in Olympia, Washington, attended by hundreds of the 1,200 non-nurse Vietnam veterans Claire found. The book, Women Vietnam Veterans, Our Untold Story, is a record of these women. And finally, Diane Carlson Evans, though not finally because there are many other women like them. Diane Carlson Evans, she overcame every obstacle and silenced every foe with polite determination but an iron will. Vietnam War correspondent Joe Galloway wrote of Diane Carlson Evans, Vietnam veteran Army nurse, as she pressed for over 10 years to place a sculpture of the women of the Vietnam War near the wall on the Mall in Washington, D.C. I request you to, and have full faith that you will, give Joe Galloway and Ben Richardson your approval to place Wings of Freedom and the plaque in Tualatin in less time than it took Diane to get the women's statue placed in Washington, D.C. There's nothing like this sculpture and plaque on the I-5 corridor, I'm told. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. David Wisnauskas. Welcome.
Mayor and City Council, thanks for giving me a moment to speak to you. I'm also in support of Ben and Joe's efforts with the Wings of Freedom, as well as putting a plaque to honor the women who have served in our U.S. military. I think it would be a great honor for the city to do this. I would like to reference 2 women who have served in the military. One is named Golda Fabian. Recently, a number of us met at her daughter's house here in Tualatin to celebrate her 101st birthday. Unfortunately, a couple of weeks ago, we also had to meet again, this time at the Willamette National Cemetery, as Golda was laid to rest. Another woman Marine that served in World War II, but she didn't serve exactly with Golda, is Hattie Kelly, a resident of nearby here. About a year ago, we also had to meet at Willamette National Cemetery to honor her service in the Marine Corps during World War II and her community work throughout this area. There are a number of women that have served in the United States military. I'm a lifetime member of the Association for the Women Marines Association and the Vietnam Veterans of America, and I've met many women who have served not only in Vietnam but in other areas. I think by honoring the women that served with the plaque, you would be honoring those women that grew up here in Oregon, then joined the military, those women who attended one of our colleges and universities, participated in ROTC, and when they graduated, they were commissioned as an officer in the branch of service. There's also a large number of women that served in the military that have now made Oregon their home. And least but not last is, while there's not a whole lot of military installations in our state, there are several, and there are women military, both officers and enlisted, that have served. And I would also include the U.S. Coast Guard along the river and along our coast. There's also women that need to be recognized by this plaque. It would be a very great honor for you to provide the plaque to honor the women that have served in the military. It would be a great benefit to your city. While I live next door to you, I'm frequently here in your city and enjoy all the ambience that you have here. So thank you for your time, and I hope you'll agree to put the plaque on the Wings of Freedom. Thanks.
Next up is Danielle Schneider from the Tualatin Food Pantry. Welcome, Danielle.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council, for the opportunity to connect tonight. I'm here tonight to discuss the removal of the Ride Connection service to the Tualatin Food Pantry and the Borland Free Clinic and being replaced with TriMet. As a food pantry, we serve 850 households. These are all low-income households, and many of them lack resources for reliable transportation, and so they depend on services like Ride Connection. Currently, Ride Connection delivers riders to the door of our pantry. They pull into a loading zone. There is a safe place with lighting for folks to disembark the bus, do their shopping in our pantry, load their groceries back up, and go back home. The proposed service from TriMet would have folks being dropped off on Borland Road. Borland Road lacks any infrastructure for people to be crossing the street, especially as we head into the winter. There are no streetlights, there are no crosswalks. The church itself is on as you're coming up and down a hill, people speed through that area. It's very dangerous. I was at the pantry tonight before I came here. It took me several minutes to be able to pull out safely, and I was in my vehicle. I was not trying to push a grocery cart full of groceries across the street, potentially with my children in tow, to load them onto a bus to come home. Additionally, there is no shoulder. I don't know where TriMet will pull over to let people off, but it seems that it will not only pose a risk to the folks accessing the pantry services, but the TriMet driver themselves being in a vehicle that's stopped on a road with no shoulder, as well as other folks who are using the roadway. Once clients have loaded their groceries, they will not have the opportunity to return their shopping carts, which will mean shopping carts are left on the road, either for our volunteers to cross the road and retrieve, or potentially being a hazard themselves in the lane of traffic. I've spoken with the executive pastor at the church, and he has agreed to enter conversations with TriMet that could potentially result in TriMet being able to drop riders off on the church property. So I hope for the safety of all and for folks who are food insecure in our community who need to utilize public transit to access our services, we can open those conversations and discuss a more appropriate location for folks to be dropped off that provides lighting, waiting areas, and a reliable way for them to exit and leave the bus.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bruce Bowman.
Hello, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm a member of a small neighborhood that resides one block west of Tualatin High School. It seems that within the last year or so, we've been invaded by high school students driving their cars, using our street for a parking lot. I'm kind of disappointed, or maybe even a little bit disturbed. It seems that maybe we as residents have a lesser status than these students do. I would have to comment that the students that park there are rather privileged. I mean, they could park at a church lot, which is about 3 blocks away, but that's not popular. You know, taking the bus, I don't know how many do that anymore, or walking to school is not particularly attractive to a lot of students. Especially disturbing is some of the hazardous driving there. You know, when they go out for lunch, they're in a hurry to get fast food. Well, they want to get there fast and get back fast, and so that the speed limit and the safety conditions are not favorable to anybody walking around there. And we do have a lot of elderly residents and some disabled people that live there, and it's so that's a serious concern for us. In addition, our house is directly adjacent to a cutout in the road for allow a turnaround for emergency vehicles, and sometimes the students will park in a place that encroaches on that bump out, which is certainly a hazard. And in addition, I'm sure there are a lot of good kids that do this, but a lot of them are not you know, are disrespectful, use foul language. They, you know, park a couple feet from the curb. They leave their litter out on the street. You know, they're often disrespectful when you try to talk to them. Another thing that bothers me is that the school district, as many of you may know, has a lot of property. You know, between the high school and the grade school, adjacent to that, there's a huge area of, you know, grass and weeds, and it's relatively underutilized. I suspect many of the high schools and other schools within the metro area would be amazed to see how much property they have. And you know, what you would need is, you know, a curb cut and a gate and maybe a gravel alleyway, and put some stripes out there, and you have yourself a parking lot, which would solve the problem. So anyway, thank you for this opportunity and for your consideration of our concerns.
Next up I have, is it Linda Hackenbrook?
Yep.
Okay. And Victoria Meadow?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm following Bruce.
All right.
But I just have a few more things to add.
Sure.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for letting us talk. Last year was the first year that our street was invaded, 96th Drive in Victoria Woods. All the other streets close to the high school that the kids have access to have the signs up that say no parking during school hours. And we tried to get those signs when we no longer could park in front of our houses, and we're told we couldn't get them. So, or they weren't giving them out anymore right now, or there was a study being done, I don't know, something, but we weren't able to get them, or we would have them up right away. So my house has the most street frontage in the whole street because it's on the corner, and so I will get like 5 cars bumper to bumper every day lined up in front of the house. Well, now workers can't get to our house that we need, you know, house cleaning or yard service. The garbages are a problem, the garbage cans, and I have a daughter with cerebral palsy who has caregivers come and there's nowhere for them to park. And if they want to park across the street or on the next person's house, that's full too. My husband and I went out and he counted 27 cars parked along our little street. and that happens almost every day, started last year. So it's completely made it really uncomfortable to live there in that neighborhood. And so I would just really ask if there's some way we can get signs put up on our street like they are in all of the rest of Victoria Woods, or else take all the signs down so that they don't all attack us on our street. And I'm not exaggerating, it's a really, really bad situation. A couple of us have looked at moving because of it, but my daughter with her wheelchair, our house is set up for her, and it would be very difficult for us to move and find a house that would work for her. So this is really hurting our lifestyle. And we aren't that picky, but this is really a problem. So if there's anything you can do at all to help us so that we'll be able to get in and out of our homes, and so will our friends and neighbors and family, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Right. I've got one more about the parking situation. Is it Chris Gillette?
It is.
All right, welcome.
Hi. Hello, Mayor, City Council. It's nice to see you. Appreciate the time to get to be here and that you'll listen to what we have to say. You're going to hear some of the same things that they just mentioned. I did provide a one-page summary that you can give this kind of expands on that a little bit. I live at 22604 Southwest 96th Drive in Tualatin. That wasn't fair.
No.
And I'm just here to express the concerns of our neighborhood relating to the use of our streets as an adjunct parking facility for the high school. My goal is to lay the groundwork for parking permits, permitted parking, that will be equivalent to the rest of the neighborhood. Beginning with the start of the 23-24 school year, Southwest 96th Drive has been overrun by students searching for parking, either out of convenience or because they can't find parking at the high school. Student vehicles nearly completely line both sides of the street. Some cars park multiple feet away from the curb, and others are parked in the wrong direction, and others are partially blocking driveways. Because the street is lined with vehicles on each side, not only is there no parking for our own needs, but there is no ability for emergency vehicles to get in and turn around or maneuver in an efficient way when time could be critical in a fire or medical event. Additionally, students wander about the neighborhood at various times during the day. They come and sit in their cars, they eat, and they take breaks. In addition to littering and speeding, they impact the street in such a way that basically eliminates the use of the street for our own needs. This conduct makes it problematic for basic use and enjoyment of our property. We must be on extreme high alert anytime our kids want to ride their bikes or play in the front yard. The mornings are difficult as well because the very time we're taking our own kids to school, we're getting kamikaze high school students coming in to outdo one another for a prime parking spot. After school's worse. Kids are coming out after they're happy to be out of school, they're excited to be done. They're loud, and they're probably just having fun, but they turn our street into a drag strip, racing each other who can get out first. It's really not safe. They have no regard for the fact that they're in a residential neighborhood and that there could be little kids coming out from behind a car. There are two other streets in our neighborhood that have access, are accessible, easily accessible for high school students to use for parking, and both of those streets have the permitted parking, which leaves our street, the lone street, to absorb the overflow. We've expressed these concerns to the high school, the police, and various council members by email. And I just want to let you know that we have been to nearly every resident in our neighborhood, and they have signed or verbally agreed a statement that they are for a permit or some regulation to the parking so that we could have our neighborhood back. And that's really all we're asking. So I don't have anything really more to add than that.
All right, perfect timing, all right. So with that, because I was waiting for you were the last person signed up for the parking situation. So what is the status with the permitted parking. I know we paused it for a little bit, but, I mean,
Well,
we
we're
have
in
the
the
whole
pro-
process to do it. That sounds like they did majority of it, working with the police. Where are we at with it?
So we're in the process right now of a study of our entire parking situation in Tualatin. So all the zones, where the zones make sense, where they don't. And we're probably a number of weeks away from having results from that. I'm not sure of the status where we are in that study. With the point of, the last time one of these processes came along, there was this discussion of it keeps pushing it out. So we're in the process of a study. And our recommendation is that you don't approve any more permit parking zones until we can have a recommendation, a citywide look. We do have a process for permit parking, and we could have the police kind of help them start that process. So the survey and all of the things that go along with a permit parking zone that will end up coming to council for ultimate approval. Having said that, being in a study that may fundamentally shift how we look at permitted parking zones could change it. We've also been working with the high school, and there is responsibility on the high school's part of figuring out the parking situation. I mean, it's their kids that are, it's community kids, but they're attending the high school, and I think they have responsibility for it.
Right. When you say a few weeks, how many weeks? Because as these folks mentioned, I mean, they're the one street that doesn't have it, because we did do the pause. Do you foresee it in 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
No,
I mean, because school's going to be starting soon, so.
Yeah, my experience, and I don't live in a neighborhood close to the high school, so they're much more attuned to this, but our experience is that the fall isn't the issue. The school district has a number of spaces. Our understanding is they have the number of spaces for the kids in the fall. Then kids start, they don't release any further parking permits for their parking lots, and kids turn 16, get a car, start driving. So later in the fall, earlier in the spring is when the neighborhood parking issue hits its peak. And but I don't think we're going to have it ready or available. I would say it'll be well into the fall.
Okay. Again, this is work session, we're just not getting the weeds here. How about I'm going to commit to talk with the city manager, and I know the councilors will on this, and see what we can figure out.
Thank you.
Because
what
you're experiencing is not right. So.
Yeah, and I appreciate what she's saying, but it's false. It's immediate, and it escalates. It doesn't start out a little bit and get worse. It starts maximum and goes from there.
Mm-hmm.
It's chaos, especially in the afternoons when they're leaving. That's where it's most unsafe.
Okay.
So thank you.
Right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Okay, next up, Gary Brennan. Welcome.
Well, greetings, Mayor, Council, and guests. I really wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but I'm down here to support our fabulous women Marines and what they want done, and congratulate Tualatin with the work that they're doing with Veterans Plaza. It's really unique. It's been going on. How many years, Doc? 7 years, I think. And anyway, it's going to be pretty fabulous. I had one suggestion that I wanted to bring up with regard to the construction there at the project. At some point during the project, medallions will will be placed for each branch of the armed forces. And I can't say how, I can't emphasize enough the importance of those medallions being placed in the proper precedence order. And that order is Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, Space Force, and Coast Guard. And you'd be surprised how many places have those flags out of sequence. It's usually Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and that's where I have a real problem. I was just at the VA hospital visiting a fellow woman Marine, and as I exited the lobby, I just looked at the flags along the wall, and sure enough, they were out of sequence. And at Willamette National Cemetery, their medallions are out of sequence, and they're real permanent, like yours are going to be. Yours will probably be made out of bronze and set in concrete, and once that's done, that's really indelible, and it's really hard to undo. Anyway, that's the only point that I wanted to make. Thank you very much for what you're doing. It's really unique, and you have a marvelous city. And I'm here with the Marine Corps League at the VFW Hall on the last Monday of every month. So I'm here a lot. So thank you.
All right. Thank you. That brings us to Lieutenant Colonel Bradley. Welcome.
Well, thank you. I understand the mic is on. So it's Lieutenant Colonel retired Jessica Bradley. Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, for having me here and for the City Council. I am Jessica Bradley. I'm a retired U.S. Marine Corps Lieutenant Colonel. I served 22 and a half years on both the enlisted side in the reserves and commissioned on the active duty officer side. I am an Oregon native. I grew up here in Oregon, nearby Oregon City, attended high school here, and graduated from Oregon State University. Well, I have the privilege of currently serving as the Women Veterans Coordinator for the Oregon Department of Veterans Affairs. The words I speak here with you this evening are my own. I want to thank the City Council for allowing me time to share my support of the historic opportunity Tualatin has to include the Wings of Freedom artwork in the Veterans Plaza as a dedicated place where we honor women who have served in the military and the next generation of women veterans. I am passionate about this art design and the dedicated space, as it would be one of the few enduring places on the West Coast that pays tribute to our underrepresented population of women veterans, acknowledging their contributions to our country in a way that might otherwise be overlooked. While as women who serve in the military, we are the most visible in uniform, we are the most invisible out of uniform. I have met and spoken with hundreds of Oregon women veterans from all diverse backgrounds and generations, many here in this county. One thing that connects us, we still carry our military service into every part of our lives. It's not invisible to us. Our history of service goes back to the Revolutionary War, where women had to disguise themselves as men to serve. While we served in World War I and World War II, it wasn't until the 1948 signing of the Armed Services Integration Act that women were permanently allowed to serve on active duty in all branches of the military. And even then, it wasn't until the late 70s that the federal law was passed giving women their earned VA entitlements and benefits. Since then, women have served in every era of wartime and in peacetime with courage and valor. While women have played crucial roles in the military throughout history, they have faced unique challenges and have overcome significant barriers. Today, nationally, women are the fastest growing demographic of veterans in the country, and if expected trends continue, women will make up 16% of all living veterans in this country by the year 2043. This includes almost 26,000 women veterans currently living in Oregon, and Washington County makes up one of the top 3 counties for demographics of women veterans in this state, the other 2 being Multnomah County and Clackamas County. The Wings of Freedom artwork and place in the plaza will not only allow us as women veterans to see ourselves and to see each other, but for others to see us too, many for the first time. It will serve as a guide marker for generations by honoring the past, present, and future of women who serve in the military and honoring our families and our communities. To the women veterans here today, I offer my deepest gratitude, and I know there's many of us here today. Your courage, honor, and selflessness to our nation has left an indelible mark on our history and our society. You are not invisible. The Wings of Freedom artwork and its place of reverence in the Veterans Plaza would give visibility to our stories and sacrifice and serve as a timeless reminder that contributions of military service are not bound by gender. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, that's all the signups I have for citizen comment. Is there anyone else in the room who hasn't signed up? Come on, Len, come on up. Mr. Schaber.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm Len Schaber, 19919 Southwest Schaber Lane, Tualatin, right next to Riverside High School up by Wonger's Corner. So one thing that I'd like to bring up and discuss if we're bringing forward, TriMet's plan for changing their bus service. On TV, there was an ad to look at their website, which I did. And on the website, I was looking at the 76 route, which is now going to be going from Tualatin down Borland Road, hop over to 205 down to Oregon City. And on that schedule, it showed Tualatin, 10th Street, and Oregon City as the places where it was going to stop. So I contacted TriMet, emailed them, asked questions about that their plan stops as far as that's concerned. And also, let me back up, on the website, it gives one timetable from Tualatin through to Oregon City, destination being Oregon City, but there's no return. Nothing is coming back. So I asked TriMet those two questions. I said, what's your planned stopovers and what is your procedures for stopping at things that are, places that are not your planned stops? And also, where's your timetable for the return route from Oregon City to Tualatin? I got a reply back saying, well, nothing was published yet, and I have to wait till the 24th of this month when they publish it, and then we'll see what comes out. So my concern is that that they have planned stops that will be something that we can discuss as far as whether it needs to be made changes. And specifically the one about Rolling Hills Church, there's a big open hole right there that nobody's even discussed yet. And the second thing is that there was a comment made about Ride Connect terminating the Green Bus line because TriMet's going to go all the way to Oregon City. And they need to coordinate that well before it happens because of all the question marks that are there. I'm a member of the Tualatin Senior Task Force, and we're concerned about transportation in all areas. And this is one that's hopefully not going to go bite us in the butt. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Anyone else like to provide comment tonight in person? All right. Do we have everybody in Zoom, Nicole? No. All right. Last chance. All right. I'm going to refer back to folks who were in here in work session. We discussed the issue of the Green Line because Ride Connection did present on the Ride Connection services here in Tualatin, and they did also state some concerns about the TriMet stop at Rolling Hills Church. Over the weekend, emails were flying, and I've reached out to Robert Kellogg, our representative on the TriMet board. It's nice to hear that the church is willing to let TriMet come on the property. So I think we're going to have staff, myself, other folks, TriMet representatives working in the background here to figure out, to get the bus, up to Borland Health Clinic, to get it to the food pantry. And then the second barrier that was mentioned in the Aging Task Force today was fares. That Ride Connection is free, TriMet is not, and how can we get people qualified for free or reduced fares to get to the food pantry and board and clinic. So that's to come. That's why I'm kind of shocked that TriMet's going to open this line on August 25th, and we haven't really worked out the kinks yet, or even stops, safe stops on Borland. But I just want to let people know that we are aware of it, and we're going to be working with TriMet diligently to make sure folks can get to the clinic and to the pantry safely, and that they don't have to wheel that cart up and down that hill. That can be pretty tough to do if you're elderly or have some disabilities. So just FYI. So with that, that moves us along to the consent agenda. And the consent agenda, those items that are considered routine and will be voted on by one vote tonight, unless the council would like to have an item removed and heard separately later tonight. Tonight, the consent agenda consists of 6 items. Item number 1, consideration of approval of the work session and regular meeting minutes of July 8th, 2024. Item number 2, consideration of approval of a change in liquor license application for Hana Sushi and Ichikaya. Item number 3, consideration of resolution number 5794-24, increasing the construction contract amount for the Martin Ozzie sanitary sewer trunk line upsizing project to replace and upsize the adjacent water pipe. Item number 4, consideration of resolution number 5795-24, authorizing the city manager to execute an amendment to the professional services contract with Wallace Engineering for professional engineering and related services for the Martin Ozzie sanitary sewer trunk line upsizing project. Item number 5, consideration of resolution number 5796-24, authorizing the city manager to execute a grant agreement for an Oregon Department of Emergency Management state and local cybersecurity grant. And finally, item number 6, consideration of resolution number 5794-24, authorizing the city manager to execute a grant agreement with the Oregon Department of Energy for acceptance of energy efficiency community block grant funding for the design and installation of a micro hydro turbine. Would any councilor like one of these 6 items pulled from the agenda and heard later tonight? Seeing none.
I move that we adopt the consent agenda as read.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to adopt the consent agenda as read. Any comments or discussion on those motions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? It's unanimous. All right. So that brings us to public hearings. Public hearing number 1 is quasi judicial. So there will be a script that I have to read. So item number 1 is consideration of ordinance number 1488-24, a planned map amendment to rezone a portion of the Willow Glen Mobile Home Park located at 9700 Southwest Tualatin Road from the light manufacturing zoning district to the medium low density residential zoning district. I will start by reading this required land use statement. After that, we will begin the hearing with a report from city staff. The presentation of the case will then be as follows: the applicant's case, followed by persons in favor of the application, followed by persons opposed to the application, then other interested parties, and then rebuttal by the applicant of any points raised. Council will have an opportunity to ask questions of the testimony and evidence presented tonight. Upon conclusion of the hearing portion and the council questions, council will enter into deliberations. Here's the required statement. Get ready. It's a long one. Oregon law requires the following information to be read. The City Council may allow a plan map amendment after a hearing conducted pursuant to TDC 32.240, provided that the applicant provides evidence substantiating that the proposal satisfies the following criteria. A, the amendment is consistent with applicable Oregon statewide planning goals and administrative rules, including compliance with this Transportation Planning Rule TPR OAR 660-012-0060. Item B, the proposal is consistent with all applicable provisions of the Tualatin Development Code chapters 32 and 33. C, the proposal is consistent with the following provisions of TDC section 33-070 sub 5. Granting the amendment is in the public interest. The public interest is best protected by granting the amendment at this time. The proposed amendment is in conformity with the applicable goals and policies of the Tualatin Comprehensive Plan. The following factors were consciously considered: the various characteristics of the areas within the city, the sustainability of the areas for particular land uses and improvements in the areas, trends in land improvement and development, property values, the needs of economic enterprises and the future development of the area, needed right-of-way and access for and to particular sites in the area, natural resources of the city and protection and conservation of said resources, prospective requirements for the development of natural resources in the city, the public need for a healthy, safe, aesthetic surroundings and conditions, and proof of change in a neighborhood or area or a mistake in the plan text or plan map for the property under consideration are additional relevant factors to consider. If the amendment involves residential uses, then the appropriate school district or districts must be able to reasonably accommodate additional residential capacity by means determined by an affected school district. Granting the amendment is consistent with the Metropolitan Service District's Urban Growth Management Functional Plan. Granting the amendment is consistent with the level of service F for the PM peak hour and E for the 1/2 hour before and after the PM peak hour for the Town Center 2040 design type, Comprehensive Plan Map 10-4, and E/E for the rest of the 2040 design types in the city plan area. Granting the amendment is consistent with the objectives and policies regarding portable water, sanitary sewer, and surface water management pursuant to applicable goals and policies in the Tualatin Comprehensive Plan. Water management issues are adequately addressed during development or redevelopment anticipated to follow the granting of a plan amendment. Testimony and evidence must be directed toward the above criteria or those criteria in the development code, comprehensive plan, or land use regulations which you believe apply to this decision tonight. If additional documents or evidence is provided in support of the application, any party shall be entitled to a continuance of this hearing. Unless there is a continuance before the conclusion of the evidentiary hearing, a participant may request before the hearing is closed that the record remain open for at least 7 days after the hearing. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the council and the priorities an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. The failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues related to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow this council to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. The hearing will begin with a presentation of city staff report, followed by testimony on behalf of the applicant and supporters of the applicant. Next follows the evidence against the application. Rebuttal is permitted. After evidence is received, the hearing will be closed and the council will deliberate towards a decision based on the facts and arguments on the record. Any tentative decision will be reduced to a final written decision adopted by the council, usually at its next meeting. If any council members wish to announce any potential conflict of interest, bias, or ex parte contact, they should do so now. Okay. Seeing none, we will now hear from city staff. Then we'll invite the applicant to give them a chance to speak. And again, like I've said before, it'll be the people in support, in opposition, and opportunity for questions. So with that, Steve, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good evening. I'm Steve Coper, Assistant Community Development Director, and we have a presentation for you tonight which covers all of those wonderful criteria that you listed. Thank you very much for that. It also provides, I think, what is a good description of the basis of the project and why we're here tonight. But before we get into it, I just want to kind of provide an overview and say that at its core, this application was born out of a property encroachment issue between Willow Glen and its neighboring property. And I've certainly dealt with a number of encroachment issues throughout my career, but in this case, the applicant, which has a representative here tonight, really did the right thing and worked with Willow Glen to do a property line adjustment to get the property to Willow Glen, which was using the area, and proposed this map amendment to adjust the zoning to properly reflect the use of the property. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Keith to give his introduction presentation, but I just wanted to make sure that that was amply clear.
Thank you, Steve. Good evening. My name's Keith Hunter, and I'm an associate planner here with the City of Tualatin, and I'm going to be presenting the Willow Glen zoning map adjustment. So the applicant previously gained approval for a property line adjustment, which matches the area proposed for the map adjustment. The map adjustment would rezone approximately 3,681 square feet of land from light manufacturing to medium-low density residential. As shown on the next slide, the strip of land is being utilized by the Willow Glen Mobile Home Park. So the mapped area on the left shows the proposed adjustment area. On the right-hand side of the slide shows the example where Willow Glen has historically used the adjustment area. The proposal would change the existing zoning from light manufacturing to medium-low density residential. As shown on the next slide, the proposal would apply to a small, approximately 9 feet wide by 405 feet long strip of land, and again, it's that 3,681 square feet area. And then no additional dwelling units or developable land would be created. So the left-hand side of the slide shows the existing zoning, and the right side shows the proposed zoning. As you can see from the very small little jog, it's a small area we're really talking about here. Next slide. Okay, slide 6 through 9 detail the applicable criteria. The findings and analysis demonstrate the compliance with these criteria. The first slide has applicable state planning criteria. This slide shows the applicable Oregon planning goals and administrative rules. Due to the limited scope of the proposed zoning map adjustment and lack of new residential development capacity, there are few goals and policies from the comprehensive plan that apply to this proposal. This slide shows the applicable metro functional plan criteria. This slide shows the applicable Tualatin Development Code criteria. The proposal will actually eliminate the non-conforming use of industrial zone land for residential use. The public interest is best protected by granting the amendment at this time. And I'll turn the presentation over to Janelle Thompson, the Vice Chair of the Planning Commission at this point.
Hi, Janelle Thompson, Tualatin Planning Commission. When we reviewed this, we very much felt like it was bringing this area back into compliance. It feels like a cleanup. None of us had any issues with it. We felt very much like they were doing their due diligence and making this comply. It doesn't have any negative effects, and all the commissioners approved of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this slide summarizes the applicable actions the City Council can make on this proposal. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
We'll wait on that for a second. Is the applicant here? Miller Nash? Okay. Come on up.
Hi all, my name is Blakely Vogel from Miller Nash. Thank you for having me this evening. I'd like to start by saying that the Planning Commission has been very helpful in this particular project. I'd like to thank Steve in particular for putting on the record that I did my job well, and I will be using this from an ex-performance review. I think this entire action before you is best summarized as administrative and cleanup. There was a dispute between the parties as to who owned what at a certain point. It is presently unclear when the current use dates back to, but the parties decided that this was the best way to clean up the dispute and the potential non-conforming use. So happy to answer any questions. I think Planning Commission did a very good job in summarizing all of this.
All right, thank you. There's a question, I'll have you come back up.
All right.
So at this point, is there anyone in Zoom or in the room who would like to state their support of this application? Seeing none. Anyone who is opposed to this application, this change? All right. Anyone who just wants to talk about it and not commit? All right. With that, I'll go ahead and ask councilors if they have questions. Councilor Brooks.
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. I appreciate the two parties working together, and I also want to state that, you know, one of the things that we really focused on in the Public Advisory Board is the importance of housing, middle housing, and that this type of housing is important to our community. So I just want to acknowledge that and thank everybody for working through like old use stuff on real estate. That's it. Thank you.
Any questions for Steve or the applicant? Okay, with that, I'll go ahead and close the hearing and we'll move into deliberations. Any deliberation on this ordinance? Council President Pratt.
Well, I'm just going to bottom line it. It seems like both parties are in agreement. This use has been, it's just a cleanup like you're saying, so I don't see any reason not to approve this.
My comment is just, I appreciate Mr. Liu and CUPO taking this initiative and doing this and working with Miller Nash and city staff to make this happen. I think Steve alluded to sometimes these kind of things might not be as, you know, nice as this one worked out to be. So this is a really terrific example of folks working together. So any other deliberations, discussions, motions?
I'll make a motion
Okay.
to, how do I do it?
It's the title first, the whole shindig. Reading by title only.
Okay, I'll make a motion to read by title only, consideration of, or ordinance numbers, it's 1489-24 and 1490-24?
No, 1488-24.
Oh, shoot, that's where I was. That's why I was like, why is there so many? First reading by title only of ordinance number 1488-22, a plan map amendment to rezone a portion of the Willow Glen Mobile Home Park located at 9700 Southwest Tualatin Road from light manufacturing zoning to district to the medium-low density residential zoning district.
You just did the first read.
Second.
I have a motion and second for first reading by title only of ordinance number 1488-24. Any discussions on that motion? Councilor Sacco?
Aye.
Councilor Reyes?
Yes.
Councilor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilor Brooks?
Aye.
Council President Pratt?
Aye.
Chair votes aye also. It's unanimous.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance number 1488-24, an ordinance amending Tualatin Comprehensive Plan Map 10-1 to apply the medium low-density residential zoning district to a parcel located at tax map 2S123BA, tax lot 3200.
I'd like to motion for a second reading by title only of ordinance number 1488-24.
Second.
I have a motion and second for second reading by title only of ordinance number 1488-24. Any discussions on those motions? Councilor Sacco?
Aye.
Councilor Reyes?
Yes.
Councilor Brooks?
Aye.
Councilor Gonzalez?
Aye.
I switched it up on you. Council President Pratt?
Aye.
The chair votes yes. It's unanimous.
Ordinance number 1488-24, an ordinance amending Tualatin Comprehensive Plan 10-1 to apply the medium low-density residential zoning district to a parcel located at tax map 2S123BA, tax lot 3200.
I'd like to motion that we adopt ordinance number 1488-24.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 1488-24. Any discussion on those motions? Counselor Gonzalez.
No.
Counselor Brooks.
Aye.
Counselor Sacco.
Aye.
Counselor Reyes.
Yes.
Council President Pratt.
Aye.
I vote yes. It's unanimous. It's adopted. All right. Thank you.
Did you vote no?
It was an error. It's supposed to be an
Oh,
aye.
okay.
It was supposed to be an aye.
He was nodding his head. All right. That brings us to more public hearings, but these are legislative. So public hearing number 1 is consideration of ordinance numbers 1489-24 and 1490-24, city-initiated updates to the Tualatin Comprehensive Plan, Municipal Code, and Development Code. Script. This is a legislative land use hearing for the City Council to consider ordinance numbers 1489-24 and 1490-24. Adopting and updating adopting an updated Stormwater Master Plan 2019 for the City of Tualatin and updating Tualatin Comprehensive Plan policies and relevant municipal development code references to reflect the updated plan. The hearing will be conducted as follows. First, the public hearing will be opened and staff will make a presentation. This presentation will apply to both this proposal and ordinance 1490-24. Next, the council will hear from members of the public who wish to testify in favor of the proposal, followed by members of the public who wish to testify against the proposal, followed by anyone else who wishes to testify about the proposal. Upon conclusion of the public testimony, individual councilors may ask questions of city staff and any person who provided testimony. After council questions, the council will close the public portion of the hearing and enter into deliberations. Upon conclusion of deliberations, the council will consider whether or not to adopt ordinances number 1489-24 and 1490-24. Does any member of council wish to abstain from participation in this hearing tonight due to a conflict of interest for any other reason? Not seeing any. I will now open the public hearing, and a presentation from city staff will now be provided. Welcome, Aaron and Steve.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. Steve Coper, Assistant Community Development Director. In addition to Aaron with me, I just want to acknowledge that we have a great deal of technical expertise behind these two master plans. We have Kim McMillan, Community Development Director, who is our former city engineer, Mike McCarthy, our current city engineer, Hayden Oslin, Principal Engineer, and then in regards to the Parks Master Plan, we have Ross Hoover, Parks and Recreation Director, here tonight. Not to mention the number of consultants that also assisted with these plans themselves. And so I just want to acknowledge that a lot of work went into these master plans, specifically in regard to the Stormwater Master Plan. Staff hopes and believes that we heard the council loud and clear last time in terms of the work that we needed to do to bring this master plan back to you, and we believe that we've achieved it with what you have before you tonight. And then you also have the Parks Master Plan, and so together they represent really the culmination or putting a bow on the planning efforts in the Basalt Creek area. And so we're happy to be here with you tonight, and I will turn it over to Aaron for the presentation.
Thank you, Steve.
Whoa.
Oh. Okay, we're just moving right along. For tonight's discussion, we will review the history of these master plan documents, as well as the significance of adopting these plans into the comprehensive plan. Next, we will briefly review the proposed text and map amendments and touch on the approval criteria. And we will then close with the Planning Commission recommendation to Council. So to set the stage, the city began work to update its Stormwater Master Plan in 2019 and its Basalt Creek Parks and Recreation Master Plan in 2021. And then earlier this year, Council directed staff to proceed with the legislative process to adopt these master plan documents. And then why would we want to adopt these master plan documents? It's important for a number of reasons, but namely, it will complete the city's long-range planning efforts in the Basalt Creek planning area, as Steve previously mentioned. Also, adoption will ensure that identified projects will become eligible for grant funding opportunities as they arrive. And as we look at the specific details of each of these plans, it could be of value to explain what they do. The Stormwater Master Plan provides an assessment of existing conditions and assets. It identifies where facilities are in need of upgrades or replacements. And it may also identify areas of the city that have unique stormwater needs that require a subbasin strategy and enhanced development standards. Overall, this document will replace an outdated plan from the 1970s and will be used to keep our stormwater program running smoothly. And conversely, I wish to highlight what the Stormwater Master Plan does not do. It does not regulate the design and construction of public or private stormwater infrastructure or environmentally sensitive lands. These items are reviewed and regulations are enforced through the development application process. There is also some history to this document. Council had previously considered the 2019 Stormwater Master Plan in 2021. The plan was initially adopted in February, but was later repealed in March due to public testimony requesting a stormwater management addendum for the Basalt Creek planning area. Council then directed staff to revise the Stormwater Master Plan to include an approach to stormwater management specific to the Basalt Creek planning area. And since that time, staff has worked diligently to do that. We've engaged consultants to study the existing conditions within the Basalt Creek planning area, finding that the existing conditions, I had a little typo in my notes. We also engaged AKS to produce maps that illustrate the existing natural resource areas within the Basalt Creek planning area and potential stormwater facilities, which we'll review on the following slides. Do you have anything you wanted to add? So this map illustrates the existing conditions, showing the area is fairly flat, though there are some slopes that exceed 25%, and those are shown in red. The approximate extents of the vegetated corridor and environmental protection area are shown in the blue overlay that surrounds the canyon. And this map illustrates existing zoning and defined drainage patterns, as well as planned and potential public and private stormwater basins. The areas indicate the approximate direction of flow, and each circle is a low point that will collect stormwater. These illustrative facilities have been scaled based on the potential development and impervious surface areas. And on this slide, we just have a few examples of common stormwater facilities. For larger projects, you might find an underground injection control underneath the parking lot. And then we also see vegetated swales quite often. Based on council direction, this subsequent work in coordination with Wilsonville, a master plan addendum for the Basalt Creek subbasin has been created and is included as Exhibit 4C. This addendum applies enhanced stormwater management standards to the Basalt Creek area. New development would be subject to Clean Water Services hydro modification standards, and stormwater facilities must be sized to meet the 25-year storm event. These standards have been applied to recent development applications in the Basalt Creek area, including the Autumn Sunrise subdivision and Plan Back Gardens apartments. Now we'll shift gears to discuss the Basalt Creek Parks and Recreation Plan. This plan is a high-level policy document that provides recommendations and concepts for future parkland and trails in the Basalt Creek planning area. The Parks and Recreation Master Plan was adopted in 2019 and identified the need to plan for parks and trails in the Basalt Creek planning area. In response to this need and after significant public involvement, the Basalt Creek Parks and Recreation Plan was created and accepted by Council under resolution. The final step of this project is adoption of the Basalt Creek Parks and Recreation Plan to amend the comprehensive plan to include it as part of the overall Parks and Recreation Master Plan. So overall, the proposed plan text and plan map amendment would adopt both plans as supporting technical documents to the city's comprehensive plan. It will update city policies and regulations related to stormwater management. It will add a new stormwater map to our comprehensive plan, and it would amend maps related to parks and trail planning. I know, it's very tiny. So the proposed text amendments that are kind of highlighted on the slide are related to stormwater management. Even though we can't really read this that well, on the left is a preview of the comprehensive plan policies. So these will align with the updated stormwater master plan and current best practices. And then on the right is a preview of development code amendments that will correct dated references to partnering agencies and adopted plans. So pretty much a cleanup. On this slide, we are proposing a new map 9.3 to the comprehensive plan. This map includes stormwater infrastructure and capital improvement projects that were identified in the stormwater master plan. Presently, we do not have an adopted stormwater system plan map in our comprehensive plan. So this will be a nice addition. And the Basalt Creek Parks and Recreation Plan identified the need for new trails on maps 8-4 and 72-2. This includes an east-west connection between Tonquin Loop and Helene's Road, so this little jig-jog right here. And it also modifies the westernmost trail to align with 124th. Before, it was going outside of our planning area and kind of jogging back up. So it's kind of a cleanup in that area. And let's see, let me advance the slide. It's hard to read, but it's showing essentially the same thing. This is just in our development code and outside of the comprehensive plan, but they work with each other. And if I can advance the slide, oops, here we go. The project also supports a number of Tualatin's climate action plan strategies related to stormwater. I won't read through those, but you can see there's a number. We've also included the project findings and analysis as Exhibit 1. Staff found that the merits of the project will comply with the applicable rules from the state, the metropolitan region, and local code. We also wish to note that we did receive some public testimony that addresses both master plans, and you probably saw that as Exhibit 9. So I'll kind of go through some of those comments now. Regarding the Stormwater Master Plan, the public testimony claims that the 2019 Master Plan effort is outdated and lacked sufficient public outreach. You'll find the ordinance under consideration does meet state and local noticing requirements, and those have been included as Exhibit 8. There was additional public testimony that claimed we did not inventory the public stormwater facilities in the Basalt Creek area. However, public lands were not acquired for regional stormwater facilities during the concept plan. But as area develops, that public infrastructure will come online. We did receive public testimony too on the Basalt Creek Parks and Rec Plan. It claims the north-south trail along the Basalt Creek Canyon was containing conflicting information on both the maps. So they're talking about this area here that's been circled. However, as I'm showing here on the existing map 8.4 and the proposed map 8.4, there is no amendment to that alignment. And while we value community input and feedback in reviewing this testimony with our legal counsel, we found that the claims do not address the approval criteria. So with that, I'll See if our Vice Chair Janelle Thompson can come back up and share with you our Planning Commission recommendation. You'll see that we provided 2 ordinances before you tonight, breaks up the projects between the 2 different master plans in case that there is consideration for one project over the other.
Yeah, thank you. So the Planning Commission considered the Stormwater Master Plan. First of all, I'd like to say that it was nice to see you guys listen to the public outreach with concerns about the stormage, the drainage in Basalt Creek. So it was really nice to see that that was being considered. We felt like they did a great job addressing the stormwater. People were happy to see that the stringent controls put on the stormwater in Basalt Creek, that they had the highest level that you can basically get. That's what we felt like had been achieved there. Everyone was in agreement that it felt good and positive and was a really great take on Basalt Creek. So we felt really good about the Stormwater Master Plan. The Parks and Rec Plan, a lot of good was said there too. Obviously a lot of work done by the city, both in public outreach and developing the plan. People have been really excited about this. I know I've seen a lot of things personally put together for it. There was some public comment concerns about some of the trails and things, but we very much felt like, as the Planning Commission, that since the document is more aspirational, it's not a direct build situation, that all those issues are sort of not necessarily in play. Since it's more aspirational, it's kind of the city's goals, it's going to the comprehensive plan. So the Planning Commission approved both the Stormwater and the Parks Plan. Thanks.
Thank you.
And that also concludes my presentation.
All right. So we'll separate these two a little bit. So I'm going to go with this. Any member of the public who wishes to testify in support of 1489-24, which is the Stormwater Master Plan? Anyone in Zoom? Nope. Anyone who would like to testify in opposition to 1489-24 dealing with the Stormwater Master Plan? Nope. All right. Then I'll switch gears here. I guess I'm supposed to ask anybody who just wants to testify generally about this matter, about the Stormwater Master Plan. All right, seeing none, we'll move over to Basalt Creek Parks Plan, and I've got one person signed up, Emma, representing T Park. Come on up. Thanks for being patient.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Bubnik, Council President Pratt, council staff. It's my pleasure in a personal capacity and also as the current chair of the Tualatin Parks Advisory Committee to present testimony in support of this ordinance. The answers are really simple. The citizens of Tualatin have said time and again that they value and prioritize the use of parkland and natural resources, and specifically a vibrant trail system as part of the Basalt Creek development. And we believe at T-Park that this plan, this Parks and Recreation Plan, will facilitate that result, that it is imperative that we listen to the residents of Tualatin and really prioritize an intentional, thoughtful inclusion of parks and natural areas and trail systems in what you all know is a very complex, very involved development situation that involves multiple municipalities, regional governments, county governments, the state government, and we really want to see our parks and trails part of that. So this ordinance and approval by council of this ordinance would be a culmination of countless hours of time amongst our staff and community engagement. This Parks and Rec Plan was unanimously approved by T-Park at the very end of 2021, and then council also approved that, as you saw in the presentation. And the result of this will be our ability as a community to prioritize the things that council has consistently said they want to with trail systems, connecting neighborhoods and communities, providing recreation and commuting opportunities for all of the people who will work in the Basalt Creek area, protecting natural areas in the Basalt Creek area, in spite of all different kinds of development there, and really contributing to the quality of life for the people that live, work, and enjoy the beautiful area that is Basalt Creek. So as a personal citizen and the chair of T Park, I'm very pleased to present this testimony in support of the ordinance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to make a statement in support of Basalt Creek Master Plan? Anyone would like to take opposition to ordinance number 1490-24? And finally, anyone who would like just to discuss it in general? All right, seeing none, I'll go ahead and open the floor for questions to staff. Council President Pratt and Councilor Brooks.
Well, thank you for all your hard work on this, and I really appreciate, I know you got the same public testimony we did and that you addressed the questions, but there was one left that I just wanted clarity on, and that was the, I gotta read it, that the memo included provide more clarity about on-site which industrial areas would require on-site detention to be constructed. So my question is that addressed, and if not, is it because the specific areas of land where these facilities would be constructed are determined after we know the land use?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start to answer that, and then maybe if that doesn't answer your question, I'll have one of our technical experts come up. I mean, the answer is that facilities are sized based on the amount of impervious development, and so the specifics, like the slide that Aaron showed with the type of facility, if it was depending on the land, it could be more visible swale, or if there was a lot of impervious and there was not room for a swale, then it might be subsurface and then not visible. And I think that answers your question, but if not, I'm happy to get some more.
Well, I guess I'm reading this to say it wants those places to be identified, but at this point, it seems like it's more of a visionary thing than a detailed.
And I think that slide that shows the conceptual development map, that gives an idea of where the low points could be, and so those are logical places. But of course, as properties develop, they may not develop quite like that, and so. Again, it goes back to, I think, the point that Aaron made, that when the Basalt Creek concept planning was done, land wasn't acquired by the city for these regional detention facilities. And so in lieu of that planning and having essentially almost a mini stormwater planning exercise by each developer and putting it on them to make sure it complies with these most stringent standards that we're putting on the books, is the way that we've chosen to address those concerns.
Okay. That explains it to me. Thank you.
Councilor Brooks.
I appreciate all the work that both departments have done on both these plans, and thank you guys. I have more questions. I kind of thought that I was going to have time, and I went out of town, so it was a little bit of a surprise. My first question is, when we talk about the high EPA ratings for this, it affects hydro modification and a 25-year storm event. I guess my question is, are there also water quality features on this, like sediment counts, organic matter, mineral matter limits on the creek?
I'm going to defer to Hayden, our in-house stormwater expert, on this one.
Okay. Hayden.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, councilors.
Hayden.
Yes, so each individual stream or watershed has different types of pollutant loading criteria that they're allowed to have. And really, there's an upper limit that's based on these ecological thresholds. If you have really clean water, you have more room to add not clean stuff to it. If you have really dirty water, your threshold limit before you spill the bucket, if you will, is really minimal. So in this particular case, the Basalt Creek or Tappan Creek hasn't been identified on it's called a TMDL list, to my knowledge, but the Tualatin River and that watershed has. So that's where Clean Water Services standards come from. is based on these Tualatin River watershed criteria.
Can we just stop right there?
Sure.
This particular water isn't in the Tualatin River watershed.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, correct. It actually drains directly to the Willamette River.
Yeah.
And there's a few different unique scenarios in Clean Water Services District, which is the district that we're a co-implementer member. There's 7 other cities. That their standards are based on what does discharge to the Tualatin River. And so we and Clean Water Services in 2 different locations across their district have to basically just kind of make it match. Just like we're in Washington County and Clackamas County, we've got some crossover between how we meet our standards and be fair across our community. And so in this particular case, the standard is based off of phosphorus, and that's the water quality limit. And that's the thing that causes algal blooms and other types of fish die-offs and things in our community. And so for Clean Water Services, they've got 3 different criteria: water quality that everybody has to meet, quantity, which is up to a certain discharge limit for how fast the water can move, and then hydromodification, which looks at those smaller rain events. And so in the Basalt Creek area, we've adapted this sub-basin, or want to adopt this sub-basin plan that does all of them up to the maximum extent practicable that we can do following Clean Water Services guidelines. And they leave that little extra bit for that 25-year detention up to the local communities to establish those more stringent standards, and that's what we would like to do here.
Okay, and so we're gonna have limits on those materials, upper limits?
Well, so we don't test for those at any of our sites, at any of the stormwater facilities, unless you are part of a type of industrial facility, or it's called you might have it, the program is identified in EPA as an industrial pretreatment program. And so if you're, let's say, a heavy metal manufacturer, you're going to be at risk of things like zinc or titanium or other types of toxic chemicals, heavy metals that could be discharging into the waterways. So Clean Water Services manages that program for us as the co-implementer, and they take very specific samples at these discharge locations at the industrially specific sites. So that's not a blanket across the Basalt Creek, because you wouldn't really be concerned about somebody's front yard, for example, like at a typical residence. But you would be concerned at Lamb Research or Oregon Sandblasting or a number of other businesses in Tualatin that trigger those thresholds to be concerned about.
What about organic matter? One of my concerns is that part of that ecological, what the map shows about the, let's see, where is it? The boundaries for the zone. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? The boundaries for the EPA zone?
Thank you, Aaron. Well, the vegetated corridor, that's what Steve just helped me
Where is
with.
the map? Here it is. The AKS, the storm features with the blue, number 7.
In that map, is
Yeah.
that identifying the water body? It says, is that water bodies and wetlands? Am I reading that right? Or is that the vegetated corridor?
It's like the combination of the two.
Combination of the two, okay.
Yeah.
So for every development that occurs in the city, they have to, and this is a part of the land use process too, they have to obtain what's called a service provider letter from Clean Water Services. And that basically describes a generic process and project to a degree where then representatives from CWS and their staff go out and evaluate the site for sensitive areas like wetland buffers, vegetated corridors, degraded conditions, and then they require the developers to enhance those conditions depending on how bad it is or what the current condition might look like.
So I guess my question is with this, like we're looking at this as a higher EPA standard now, but upriver, we don't have that. And from what I understand, the quality of the water has changed a lot in this area since we put in like different neighborhoods due to organic matter, due to fertilizer, et cetera, going into that area. And so as it moves downstream into these places where they're trying to clean it up,
right, down in Wilsonville and into the Willamette. We're starting with this, and there's currently, from what I understand, already trees that are dying and problems with discolored water, et cetera. So do we have anything in our plan that kind of addresses the sensitivity of this area with the water quality? Or do we have checks and balances with CW? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, well, it's a good question.
Thank you.
And multi-layered.
Yeah.
So there are currently no stormwater controls happening in the area. There's some infrastructure out there and some facilities that the county constructed when they did some road work back in the day that would not be conforming to today's standards. So the way that it would work is very site-driven and development-driven. And so if you have somebody who comes in and wants to do a 1,000-square-foot project, they're going to be held to these standards. If you have somebody who wants to do a 100-acre project, they're held to the same standards too. Those are going to be very unique and case by case, because it's going to all drain downhill, and they're going to have to come through our land use process and our design review process, which we look at countless hours of making sure that they're designing it to the maximum extent practicable, and money is not a concern for us, and it's actually written that way in Clean Water Services codes and standards, because people come in and they say, hey, instead of having us do this project to actually meet the water quality and treatment standards, can we just not do it and pay the fee instead? And we rarely accept that. We only accept it in cases where you've got this maybe small portion that's literally flowing the wrong direction, and it's like a sliver of what they just physically can't make work. Other than that, we do not accept situations like that, and it's a very strong stance that we do choose to take. So at the moment, there's nothing controlling any of that, so you're going to see erosion. I've walked the site. I've walked up and down the Basalt Creek and Tappan Creek areas, and there's significant erosion happening,
Yes.
but there's no controls that have
Right.
been put in place, and so development will actually improve the quality.
Right. So, and then I guess my other question with that is, when we talked about having this plan and having it improve grant opportunities, are there opportunities that we see moving forward, such as if we are going to do all these parks and everything here, we don't want that to become like a noxious, swampy place. So is there a way that we can have part of this being establishing sort of a vision around how we can improve this area that's already being compromised through erosion? And really, I mean, we saw that first raw pipe in the first picture of what the storm management system was, and it's not great. So, so that's one of my questions. I have a couple like big questions like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I completely understood the question. Are you asking if we have a master plan to?
Well, it says in
address
the
regional
slide work
facilities?
that there's grant opportunities, and I'm just curious, what kind of grant opportunities do we think that we see with this?
I don't know that we know yet. I think what we know is that if we don't have an adopted master plan, that we will not be able to pursue them.
Yeah.
That's the emphasis for this evening. As
Right.
far as what we might do in the future in terms of, like, your question about how might a future park integrate stormwater design, that would be part of the process of designing the park.
Okay, I'm just wondering, and then when I'm thinking through this, plus also with the water improvement and public works, what we're doing with the water master plan, how can we leverage the most out of our stormwater master plan that integrates the needs of not only the community development needs, but also the parks needs and the public works needs? And how collaborative are we being on that? So those are kind of some questions that I have. The other question I had was with the basins, low basins, there's streams. Are the streams named? Are they above ground? What's the quality of those two areas that we're putting water into?
I'll answer that second part of the question there. So the streams that we have identified are just the Tapman Creek and its tributaries, if you will. They're unnamed creeks and streams at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
I had another question of, as far as general goes, if we don't have sort of general, well, let me do one further one. Just because we know Basalt Creek's so impermeable, there's a couple questions that have come up for this, where do we have in the master plan, do we have any suggestions or pieces around permeability of surfaces that are put in this area? Like concrete?
Yeah, not directly. What development is allowed to do is to evaluate what their site conditions already are. And so in the city of Tualatin, we've got a wide range actually of existing soil conditions. And so we've got clay, which is completely, let's say, arguably impermeable. And then we've got sand seams where you can dump a fire truck into a bucket and it would go through in a matter of minutes. And what a developer would prefer to have is develop or at least treat their stormwater without having to build all the pipes and infrastructure that do discharge, but to actually use the infiltration capacity on their site to their advantage. It's much, much cheaper, and it saves long-term infrastructure costs on the public too, because then we don't need as large of pipes and as many manholes and other things like that to take care of our system. So that's going to be very dependent, again, on a site-by-site basis. And one of my recommendations when I'm consulting with other design engineers is, how have you done a geotechnical analysis of your site, and are you evaluating whether or not you can get infiltration? And if you can't, you still have to meet the same discharge standards, either way.
So I'm just curious with this plan though, how are we being helpful to the developers by having these kinds of best practices suggestions? Do we have like a list of best practices suggestions for the developers that are putting in things, especially with relationship to cooling off the area so that we don't have rising water temperatures, to concerns about landslides, to concerns about especially sediment and organic levels of the water?
So I mean, a couple of things to answer your question, I hope. One is that, and I think we covered this in one of the early slides, is that the purpose of the Stormwater Master Plan is not to set specific site design for stormwater systems. And so Clean Water Services regulations, for example, which are not part of the master plan but do exist in their code and our code combined, essentially express a preference for, as Hayden mentioned, like infiltration over construction of mechanical facilities. And so that is in the code. It's not necessarily something that's captured in the master plan, because the master plan is intended to be essentially a 10,000 foot level. And some of the questions or suggestions that you're asking are sort of like ground level functional suggestions for how Clean Water Services and we may update our regulations in the future. Does that seem accurate, Hayden?
Yeah, it does. And to add on to that, the weeds of the design and construction standards that CWS has does address all of those things. They want to preference green infrastructures, what they call it, or LIDA, which is low impact development approaches, over impermeable surfaces. Sediment controls are a mandatory thing that come both during active construction periods and also after the fact. So they do address all of that. But I think to Steve's point, the master plan would not go into those details.
Well, our master plan won't.
Correct.
So
Yeah,
there are some
even-
master plans
yeah.
that do go into more detail, am I correct?
Yeah, and even Clean Water Services, their stormwater management plan does not either. It references, in most of its cases, it references the design and construction standards, which goes through periodic updates as codes and regulations increase.
I think that we have an opportunity sometimes in these moments to be able to really give direction to where we're going, and not get caught up in some places like we did with the trees and the development. And so when I'm looking at when we're doing a master plan update like this, and when we could have the opportunity of being a little bit more specific, even in general direction, and helping people understand what the shape of it is that we're looking for as a city, instead of like guessing at it, kind of estimated costs and things like that. I think that's some of the community concerns that I've heard. and some of the concerns that I also share. And is there, and then my other thing, I still am not clear why we would have the climate action plan piece of the Tualatin Water Basin as part of something that's for the Willamette River that has very different needs over there, and what we're trying to do downstream from where we are. I mean, I don't want a mess that we're just, that's not our problem because we're upstream.
And I think on to that point, we coordinated closely with the city of Wilsonville. The consultant that developed the water master plan, Brown and Caldwell, also developed their water master plan. And they found our approach with this sub-basin strategy to be agreeable based on, and they found it to, I mean, we don't have the exact same standards because they're not in clean water services, but they found it to mesh with their approach. And I think the thing that we are going for, and specifically calling out the hydro modification, is that is, I think, really getting to your point about decreasing sedimentation, and that is specifically a standard that was created by Clean Water Services to regulate the rate of discharge of the stormwater facilities, specifically to address that sedimentation issue.
Okay. I guess the other thing is why we wouldn't add the Willamette name onto that piece as far as what we're flowing into.
Maybe, could you rephrase the question?
When it talked about the parts of the climate action plan that it addresses, it talked about the Tualatin River Basin, which it's not in. And so I'm just wondering why we wouldn't just at least use the Willamette River Basin, since that's what it is.
Why did the climate action plan not include both basins?
No, when we're talking about it from the stormwater master plan of this area, why wouldn't we include that basin as well for this amendment?
Do you know that we were? I mean, I guess the answer is that we refer to it by the Basalt Creek subbasin, which is the subbasin that's local to us. I mean, my understanding in looking at Wilsonville's recently adopted master plan, which they adopted, I believe, in July, they refer to it also as the Basalt Creek subbasin area.
Okay.
And they don't specifically, like, my recollection is they don't tie it. I mean, they're entirely within the Willamette, but they don't tie it or call it out as the Basalt Creek part of the Willamette drainage basin. They don't use that kind of language, I guess.
And maybe another point on that too is that the Tualatin River does also drain to the Willamette. So kind of by default, we don't refer to the Tualatin River Basin as the Willamette Basin
No.
in our narrative most of the time. We keep it more locally specific.
No, but if you want to go into organizations that help take care of those areas, there are two different organizations and two different parts of government and two different parts of private activity as well. So I think it's really important that people understand what they're working with, especially people that live in that area and have the right guidance. And I think that's what master plans are supposed to do. So that's kind of where I'm coming from a, like when we look out big, because that's where people would have to go to for that. And then I'm just curious if I could get a copy of or a link to the Clean Water Services parts of those regulations that cover this part now that you're referring to.
When you say this part now,
The amendment for the Basalt Creek with the standards that apply.
I think that would just be the design and construction standards for Clean Water Services. And yeah, we could send that to you.
Yeah, and they have sediment limits and different things like that.
Some of the driving documents from them would be the Stormwater Management Plan, and their LIDA handbook, and their design and construction standards.
And
Those would be the
best
three.
practices?
They're meshed in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think, I'm not going to say I don't have one more question, but I think I covered all my questions. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Thank you for the information. My question is around the revised policy on beaver and dam control. So you guys have changed the language. So In my profession, I work with beavers in managing several communities, and there could be quite nuisance, but actually they have a beneficial reason. But our prior policies, we said restrict beaver dam activity in the wetland. That's very specific to not allow dams to be built. Instead, you are making recommendations to change the wording to say, implement beaver management techniques to selective encourage and discourage beaver activity based on characteristics. Why the change?
To my knowledge, we are following some updates to the state, like Oregon Department of Fisheries and Wildlife, when it comes to how they manage beaver activity. There's been historical ways of relieving their impact on communities, and there's been new technologies out there. I think one of them is called I always call it the wrong thing, a beaver deceiver is a name for one of them. And ultimately you get to the point where you have beavers in wetland areas, just like we do here in Tualatin, that create high water levels that can flood properties. And so obviously we have a lot of community members that are not thrilled about that idea and do lose access to their sites. And so it's a common question. And we've got staff that are trained in our Public Works Department on how to go out and implement these technologies to help relieve the flooding and high water levels. But I don't think that, this is not my expertise here so much, but I am, to my understanding, the city did not make up its own language specific to our community, but we're more or less catching our outdated code and language in our development code up to the current standards from the Department of Fisheries and Wildlife and other regulatory agencies that would be driving that conversation.
Thank you for that long explanation. I guess I'm concerned with that policy because it doesn't allow us, the city, the freedom to do what needs to be done to keep those water flowing. Instead, you're now yielding to a higher power, correct? By updating to their standards?
If the higher power, you mean like a ODFNW?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my understanding, is that we have to match what their regulatory language states. And
Do we have to?
I think that we do, yes.
So I am concerned about that because it could limit our city's ability to do what it needs to do to maintain our water quality and things flowing. And beavers can be quite nuisance to that process. And so when they use vague language here, it almost leaves it up to choice. Versus before it said restrict beaver dam activity. I mean, that's very specific to not allow it to happen. But this language here is very vague. To who do you have to check permission to do anything when it comes to beaver mitigation?
I do think it is ODFNW.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess we have no choice, right? Or do we have a choice?
I would not know. Yeah, I don't know if I'm at liberty to state that, other than that's what ODFNW's code has driven behind our update, just to match current standards.
Maybe I will ask for maybe a follow-up on this, just to see if we have to enforce that policy, or do we have to make those changes? Cannot we just leave it the way it was before and restrict as we see fit as a city?
We can certainly follow up, but I guess my understanding was the same as Hayden's, that in particular the state has had new restrictions on being able particularly to kill beavers, to be quite direct, and that was previously allowed and it's not allowed anymore, and that they have taken over regulation of how cities deal with it. I think the question is would you like us to follow up, or are you interested in tabling consideration of the master plan until we get the answer?
That's a very big question. I guess not to table the master plan. I mean, there's been so much work put forth for this to happen. I would just like to see more specific language, and I don't know what that looks like, but definitely not tabling the master plan. I know in the past, because beavers do not transfer correctly, that you would have to eliminate them. I mean, that's the hard reality of it. Okay, I guess I have to be satisfied with that response.
We're happy to follow up and get a more specific response to it.
Yeah, but not to hold up the master plan. It's just for my own information.
Absolutely.
Other questions? I just have one, and it's just high level. So with the waters being so close to Wilsonville, so CWS is still going to clean all the water. Pumping stations are going to have to be built because it's not going to follow gravity. So none of this water is going to go towards Wilsonville for treatment. It's going to all be done by CWS.
So if you're talking about the storm sewer system, there are no pump stations involved with that. If you're talking about sanitary sewer, then that's where the pump stations come in, and that's a much more closed environment. So with the storm system, we follow, the water follows. I get myself into the weeds too far sometimes. The water follows gravity, and so that's the
Right.
direction as it goes towards Wilsonville.
It's going
And
to go
so-
towards Wilsonville. We're not trying to redirect.
Correct, yeah, we're not trying to pump stormwater into a location, and I think that we wouldn't be allowed to even if we wanted to, so.
Just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Yeah.
Councilor Reyes?
It just sparked a question when you were saying dumping water without letting the water go somewhere else. Actually, I was thinking of more like reusing stormwater. Is there like it's just popped in my brain. Sorry, if it's something that's way down the future, but I'm thinking of capturing stormwater or collecting it and then reusing it for other things. I'm just curious on that.
Yeah, so it's a great thought, and there's been a lot of ideas and design work actually put out there in the world of technology and engineering on how to do that and make it a reality. And some of the lowest hanging fruit that you may have heard about would be something as simple as a rain barrel that you put underneath your gutter, and it collects the rainwater that would just be coming off of your roof and going into the street and into the storm sewer system, and then being able to reuse that at some point in the future. The difficulties around it when it comes to larger scale projects is then you do need to involve pumps. You do need to think about the water quality when you're irrigating, let's say, other sites and things like that. So it gets complicated and messy quickly, but it's a great idea, and we're constantly trying to think of new ways to manage our water systems as best possible.
Any other questions? Excuse me. Okay, since there's no other questions, I'll go ahead and close the hearing and open deliberations on, first let's focus in on the Stormwater Master Plan, which is ordinance 1489-24. So deliberations on that item. Do we have any? Council Brooks? Yep.
I'm really glad that we're doing a stormwater master plan in this area. It's long overdue, and it's nice that the city can do better than what's been happening, in my opinion, over there. I was shocked when I first saw that raw pipe that just dumps into Basalt Creek, and hearing the struggles of the people that have lived there for a long time, dealing with a lot of the problems that impervious services and those things they didn't really address very well. I still continue to think that a stormwater master plan can be more specific. In lieu of doing that in this moment, I do think discussing ways that we can have at least things that are easy for the developers to understand, maybe toolkits or just something, and also talking about the code updates, if we're going down to that level, would maybe be something to consider in the future. I'm really concerned that it's already degrading and that we're planning parks lands there, and it's affecting people's experience of living there. And I know it's a mixed bag since it's not all ours yet. And then there's just a part about like naming the streams and having the features actually clarified in those desires of the community there to be thinking about that a little bit more as well in the future for wherever it lands, if it's not in the stormwater master plan, if it's down in the code. And it's a little confusing to me because I do know that there are more specific stormwater master plans out there with more direction that makes it sometimes easier for developers to understand what to do
and also makes it easier for grants and makes it easier for coordination with other departments. So those are the concerns that I have with this really very general deal that we have going on. Thanks.
Any other deliberations, comments? My throat tonight. Motions?
Is it a reading?
First and second.
Okay. I motion for first reading of ordinance numbers 1489-24 and 1490-24.
Separate.
Oh, each one separate. Okay, so 1489-24 by title only, first reading.
Second.
I have a motion and second by first reading for title only of ordinance number 1489-24. Any discussion on those motions? Councilor Sacco?
Aye.
Councilor Reyes?
Yes.
Councilor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilor Brooks?
Aye.
Council President Pratt?
Aye.
Chair votes yes.
Ordinance number 1489-24, an ordinance related to land use, amending the Tualatin Comprehensive Plan, Municipal Code, and Development Code.
I'd like to motion for a second reading by title only of ordinance number 1489-24.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for a second reading by title only of ordinance number 1489-24. Any discussion on those motions? Councilor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilor Brooks?
Aye.
Councilor Sacco?
Aye.
Councilor Reyes?
Yes.
Council President Pratt?
Aye.
I vote aye also.
Ordinance 1489-24, an ordinance related to land use, amending the Tualatin Comprehensive Plan, Municipal Code, and Development Code.
I'd like to put out a motion for adoption of ordinance number 1489-24.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 1489-24. Any discussions on those motions? Councilor Sacco?
Aye.
Councilor Reyes?
Yes.
Councilor Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilor Brooks?
Aye.
Council President Pratt?
Aye.
And the chair votes yes. It's unanimous. The ordinance is adopted. Now we'll do the parks one. So that's 1489-90, right? No, 1490-24.
1490-24.
Nope. You can make a motion.
Can I say go Parks? Okay. I'd like to motion for first reading by title only of ordinance number 1490-24.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for first reading by title only of ordinance number 1490-24. Any discussion? Councilor Sacco?
Aye.
Councilor Reyes?
Yes.
Councilor Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilor Brooks?
Aye.
Council President Pratt?
Aye.
Chair votes yes.
Ordinance 1490-24, an ordinance related to land use, amending the Tualatin Comprehensive Plan and Development Code.
Okay, I'd like to motion for second reading by title only of ordinance number 1490-24.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for a second reading by title only of ordinance number 1490-24. Any discussion on the motions? Councilor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilor Brooks?
Aye.
Councilor Sacco?
Aye.
Councilor Reyes?
Yes.
Council President Pratt?
Aye.
Chair votes is yes.
Ordinance 1490-24, an ordinance related to land use, amending the Tualatin Comprehensive Plan and Development Code.
Motion to adopt ordinance number 1490-24.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 1490-24. Discussions? Councilor Sacco?
Aye.
Councilor Reyes?
Yes.
Councilor Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilor Brooks?
Aye.
Council President Pratt?
Aye.
Chair votes yes also, and the ordinance is adopted. All right. Phew, we only have a few more to go. All right. Public hearing number 2, consideration of ordinance number 1494-24, vacating a portion of right-of-way located east of Southwest Boonesferry Road, south of Southwest Norwood Road, and north of Southwood Green Hill Lane. All right, another script. This is a public hearing for the City Council to consider ordinance number 1494-24, vacating a portion of right-of-way located east of Southwest Boonesferry Road, south of Southwest Norwood Road, north of Southwest Green Hill Road, identified on tax lot 106 of tax map 2S.1.35D, and authorizing the city manager to take any and all actions necessary to implement the ordinance. This hearing is being held pursuant to ORS 271-20 and will be conducted as follows. First, public hearing will be opened and the city staff will make a presentation. Council will hear from the members of public who are in favor of the ordinance. We'll hear from those folks who are against the ordinance, and then we'll hear from the folks who just want to discuss it in general. Upon conclusion of public testimony, individual councilors may ask questions of staff and any person who provided testimony. After questions are answered, the council, I will close the public portion of the hearing and enter into deliberations. Upon conclusion of deliberations, the council will consider whether or not to adopt ordinance number 1494-24. Does any member of the council wish to abstain from participating in this hearing? Seeing none, I'll now open the public hearing and we'll kick it off with a presentation from city staff. Steve.
Again, Mayor and Council. Steve Coper, Assistant Community Development Director. I'm going to turn it over to Madeline to give our brief presentation. I mean, ultimately, this is just essentially kind of similar to the first item, a fix here. It was inadvertently dedicated as right-of-way to the city because it's contiguous to Boone's Ferry. That created problems with having the park that we all want to see happen there, and so we are here to fix that.
Thanks, Steve. Good evening. My name is Madeline Nelson. I'm the assistant planner here at the City of Tualatin. So you're getting a whole tour of the whole planning team this evening. And tonight I will be leading the presentation to discuss a proposed right-of-way vacation. The case file is VAC 24-01, otherwise known as the Horizon Flagpole Lot Vacation. So as a brief overview, the City of Tualatin is proposing a right-of-way vacation under the Oregon Revised Statutes 271. The proposed right-of-way vacation is an 18,000 square foot area of land, which is located east of Southwest Boone's Ferry Road, south of Southwest Norwood Road, and north of Southwest Green Hill Lane. It's identified in the shaded portion of tax lot 106, which is presented on the screen this evening. As some additional background, in March of 2023, the right-of-way was dedicated to the city with an access and utility easement over it for the benefit of the Planbeck Gardens community, which is shown in the shaded portion of this image. And then based on a determination by the Washington County Surveyor, in order to use the site as a park site, the right-of-way would then need to be vacated and then reconveyed to the city. So therefore, in order to accomplish the construction of said city park within this area of unused property, a right-of-way vacation is proposed. The existing access and utility easement, as previously mentioned, for the benefit of Planbeck Gardens will remain and stay maintained, which is shown in the red dashed area. Prior to approving the right-of-way vacation, council will need to find that the applicable criteria are met. So under ORS 271, the governing body shall hear the petition and determine whether the consent of the owners of the area has been obtained, if public notice has been duly given, and if the public interest would be prejudiced by the vacation of such plat or street or parts thereof. If such matters are determined in favor of the petition, the governing body shall by ordinance make such determination a matter of record and vacate such plat or street, otherwise it should deny the petition. So jumping into the individual approval criteria, starting with the property owner consent, Oregon Revised Statutes Chapter 271 allows the city to initiate the vacation process and to make a decision at a public hearing as long as the appropriate notice is given. The City of Tualatin has initiated the right-of-way vacation process, and thus the standard is met. Moving on to the notification requirements, public notice was published in a newspaper of general circulation for at least 2 consecutive weeks prior to this hearing, and notices were also posted on the site within 5 days of the first date of the newspaper publication. So these standards are also met. And then lastly, for the public interest would not be prejudiced by this vacation. The tract will be utilized for a government-owned linear park. So in conclusion, the staff report and attachments in your packet demonstrate that the applicable criteria are met. City staff are respectfully recommending that council adopt ordinance number 1494-24. And again, this action would vacate an 18,000 square foot area of land, which is located east of Boones Ferry, south of Norwood Road, and north of Green Hill Lane, and again, facilitating the future construction of a city park. This action would also authorize the city manager to take any and all actions necessary to implement the ordinance. And that wraps up our brief presentation this evening, if there's any questions.
All right, thanks, Madeline. We'll do the Q&A part for public involvement. So any folks in the room or in Zoom who would like to testify in favor of this ordinance, please do so now. Anybody? Folks in opposition? Anyone would like to just discuss it generally? Nothing? All right. Questions for Steve and Madeline? Nope. Okay. With that, I'll go ahead and close the hearing, and we'll move on to deliberations.
Make a motion?
Sure.
Make a motion to, the first reading by title only of ordinance number 1494-24.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for first reading by title only of ordinance number 1494-24. Any discussions on those motions? Counselor Sacco?
Aye.
Counselor Reyes?
Yes.
Counselor Gonzalez?
Aye.
Counselor Brooks?
Aye.
Council President Pratt?
Aye.
Chair votes yes.
An ordinance approving the vacation of public right-of-way for a tract of land located east of Southwest Boonesbury Road, south of Southwest Norwood Road, north of Southwest Green Hill Lane, identified on tax lot 106 of tax map 2S135D.
Make a motion for second reading by title only of ordinance number 1494-24.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for second reading by title only of ordinance number 1494. Any discussion? Counselor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Counselor Brooks?
Aye.
Counselor Sacco?
Aye.
Counselor Reyes?
Yes.
Council President Pratt?
Aye.
Chair votes yes.
Ordinance number 1494-24, an ordinance approving the vacation of public right-of-way for a tract of land located east of Southwest Boonesbury Road, south of Southwest Norwood Road, north of Southwest Green Hill Road, or Lane, identified on tax lot 106 of tax map 2S135D.
Motion to adopt ordinance number 1494-24.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for adoption of ordinance number 1494-24. Any discussions on the motions? Counselor Sacco?
Aye.
Counselor Reyes?
Yes.
Smith? God. Counselor Gonzalez?
Aye.
Counselor Brooks?
Aye.
Council President Pratt?
Aye.
Chair votes aye also. The ordinance is adopted. All right, let me take a swig of water here. All right, we're in the home stretch.
All righty, resolution.
All right, so that brings us to general business. Ross is here and Rich. These next 5 items all have to do with the very exciting purchase of additional parkland. So Ross and Rich, welcome. I'm assuming that you're going to give one presentation for all of them, and then we'll just crank through voting on this, because I have a feeling we're going to be very happy to do this tonight. So Ross.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councilors. We're glad to be here. Rich Mueller, Park Planning and Development Manager for the city, and Ross Hoover, Director of Parks and Recreation. So we are here to talk about the next step in realizing the vision for a future riverfront park that's accessible, that provides access to nature for everyone in our community and beyond, a gathering place in our downtown core. So we have a set of 5 actions for you to consider tonight around the acquisition of a piece of land to make this a reality. So on the next slide, let's talk about that piece of property. Hand it over to Rich.
Yeah, thank you, Ross. Good evening, council. Is Tualatin Community Park just over 29 acres, and most of you remembered in 2023, the city obtained an additional 3.12 acres And now, tonight, you're considering the purchase of 2.75 acres. At this time, we have just over 3,100 feet of riverfront property. This last piece is about the size, about the length of a football field. So that will put us up to right around 3,500 feet along the Tualatin River, and will give us 0.67 miles of riverfront property throughout the Tualatin Community Park. Here's some of the details. I think the important things to mention with the property in 2023 and this property, an additional 6 acres approximately, just under 500 feet of Hedges Creek. It's the only natural, unstraightened section of the creek left in Hedges Creek system. Again, right around a football field of Tualatin Riverfront property. A real benefit is that signal at Martinazzi to give us safe access from Boones Ferry, to and Martinazzi to and from the entire 6 acres of property. We have a trail going in there. Ross will talk a little more about that in a minute, with Metro supporting that trail system, this acquisition, and the park purchase. This has flood implications to mitigate floods. It has climate action implications. It's connected to our downtown core and is going to enhance economic development and economic growth in the core area. With that, I think I turn it back over to Ross.
So alignment, let's talk about alignment with our other planning documents in the city and your vision for the future of the city. So this is a project within the 2019 Parks Master Plan. This certainly was a high priority, probably the priority in the 2022 Parks and Trails bond that voters approved. This connection is a really key connection from a trail perspective, because it's the gap. This is the gap that we do not have all the way from the far east corner of our city over at Browns Ferry Park all the way to Keokuk's Bridge and to Tigard. This is the only gap that exists at this point. So it closes that. It's also part of the Metro Regional Trails Plan. This is a high priority connection as well for Metro in our regional connectivity. It is also on the Tualatin National Water Trail designation, National Trail. And this is a key access point to that water trail. And then, of course, the 2024 Climate Action Plan that was recently adopted. The work that can happen on the site in terms of flood mitigation, restoration of the creek corridor, the riparian area along the river, the buffers, there's going to be some great work that I know our community will prioritize as high design elements within as we think about the next phase of this work. Let's talk next slide about funding. So the property that we're referring to as the Robb property, and the reason we're calling it Robb property is Maggie Robb has been the owner and has resided on the property for about 50 years. She's been the steward of this property. The Robb property, we have come to agreement and present to you tonight the purchase price of $1.5 million. Of that 1.1 would come from the city Parks and Trails bond, and $400,000 come from Metro. And so that's one of the actions that is before you tonight, is that IGA for Metro to contribute $400,000 to the acquisition of this property. And this is the concept image. This is the very, very rough concept of what this can look like. Ensuring access to the river, ensuring that there's a place for everybody to access the river that really doesn't exist now. What else can happen at this site? We don't know. And that's the work ahead of us. But wanted to just share this with you, and share this with you because I mentioned Maggie Robb, who couldn't be here tonight, but wanted to really badly. And so I'll just share what she shared with me, and I'm confident it reflects what she would probably say, or some of what she would say, and that is that this is a really special place. And it's been a special place for people for a very long time. The confluence of the creek to the river, really important culturally throughout our history. The Atfaladi and Kalapuya people use this site, and Maggie Robb has been a strong steward of this space for many, many decades. And so she's honored to be able to sell this to the city for a future park place where people can gather for generations and continue that really strong stewardship of this place. So our next slide, consideration for adoption tonight are 5 separate actions in this order. One, the Metro IGA, the intergovernmental agreement that authorizes and accepts $400,000 from Metro for this acquisition. The purchase and sale agreement with Maggie Robb to then proceed with closing on the purchase. And then maintenance and operations agreements. There are 2 of those. Currently, Maggie Robb has a tenant, and what these agreements do is allow for those two folks to stay in those houses, to figure out where they're going to move next, to give them some time, but also gives us an opportunity as the city to have eyes and ears on the property. And beyond that, to maintain the property, how they've been maintained for many years by the folks who live there. So it's a benefit to the city, and so there's 2 agreements for that to happen. And then the last action is the access agreement. Essentially, one of the houses is only accessible through our city neighboring property across the bridge, and so that permits and allows that access to happen. And I listed off, last slide was sort of a list of different actions that the maintenance and operations agreement allows. On this slide, you'll see future work ahead of us. Number 1, the site acquisition. So upon your consideration tonight, if you decide to proceed, the purchase and sale agreement would go to escrow and go through the closing process once it's acquired. Future work includes concept development and further thinking out that concept, really meaningfully engaging with our community to think about what that looks like. Developing a site plan that then can be utilized at the next stage, which is the full site design and engineering, developing a set of documents that we can then go to construction with. And then, of course, construction, and then grand opening. And so that is the future work ahead of us, and this is the first bullet on the list, the first sort of official action to realize that vision of an accessible park in gathering place in our downtown core. So we would be happy to answer any questions or have any comments or feedback for us.
Questions or comments for Rich and Ross? Councilor Brooks.
Well, I know that I'm not the only one that's super excited about this, and I just want to thank the city leadership with Sherilyn, our fearless leader, and the whole Parks Department. I can't kind of sometimes wrap my head around exactly how you do what you do. But when I look at the presentation tonight, like the alignment of values and vision, that's something that helps me so much in understanding the approach that we're taking, and is so well done by this department in particular in our city. I also just want to thank Maggie and Emma on the Parks Committee. I encourage people to consider volunteering for when this design process goes up for the community members, especially members of arts and different people that can contribute really great vision. And then I know Metro Councilor Rosenthal's here and is really excited about this too. So I want to thank Metro for participating, not just in this project, but with so many projects for our parks. And I don't know if it was just where I landed in my council, but I don't remember Metro doing as much for our city before Councilor Rosenthal came on. So I just, I wanted to mention that as well. So I'm super excited, and it's going to be really good for the health and quality of our downtown area, economically as well. And I'm looking forward to kicking it off with the rest of our redevelopment downtown. It's going to be exciting.
Councilor Sacco.
Thank you. I just want to express my excitement as well. And as someone who sat on the Bond Community Planning Committee, I'm sure that's not the right name of the group, but just to see the planning and excitement and vision and passion come to fruition is just amazing. And so I just want to thank you for that, for really capturing the vision and the just the community will for this project, and bringing that to light is just amazing to see. So thank you. And I know there was a lot of patience through this process that was needed by the leadership group, and a lot of work and diligence. And thank you so much for sticking with it and doing all that you do for this community. Thank you.
Council President Pratt.
Oh, you know what? Sitting here, it's so hard. I see the three of you, and I just wanted to smile the whole time. I mean, we've come a long way since that master plan that so many of us in here worked on in 2019. So it's very exciting that we're going to have this and have a great river access and a great livability for our community for decades to come. And Commissioner Rosenthal, you missed Councilor Brooks. Thank you for the $400,000 for this great project, and we appreciate. Yes. Yes, and the other money we've gotten from Metro for parks. I agree. Thank you all.
Any other comments or questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm also thank you for the presentation, and I'm excited to see this come to life and finally here. So thank you very much for all the hard work, and can't wait to see people enjoying and having fun. So thank you.
Any comments? Right. Yeah, everyone said it before. Thank you, Rich and Ross, for shepherding this through the process of negotiations and working with the Metro folks. As was mentioned before, it's not a lot of times we give compliments to Metro at the city level, so take them when you get them. But we very much appreciate, yeah, I mean, between this and the ribbon cutting on our extension under 99W, thank you to Metro on providing dollars and staff to help us plan this. I'm looking forward to being open. I know it's going to be a while. People are going to be probably nipping at your heels. I mean, they want Veterans Plaza open. They're going to want this open. So I know you get your hands full, but it's going to be an exciting time when we do have that ribbon cutting. So we've got 5 resolutions, so we need to adopt each one. Luckily, it's not first and second reading. It's just a voice vote. I go do a roll call vote. So let's go ahead with item number 1. No, got to do each one by one.
Okay. I motion to adopt resolution number 5798-24.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 5798-24. Any discussion? Councilor Gonzalez.
Yes.
Councilor Brooks.
Aye.
Councilor Sacco.
Aye.
Councilor Reyes.
Yes.
Council President Pratt.
Aye.
Chair votes yes, the resolution is adopted. Item number 2,
Okay.
resolution number 5799-24.
I motion to adopt resolution number 5799-24. Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 5799-24. Any discussion on that motions, those motions? Councilor Sacco.
Aye.
Councilor Reyes.
Yes.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Yes.
Councilor Brooks.
Aye, aye.
Council President Pratt.
Aye.
Chair votes yes also. That resolution is adopted. Item number 3, resolution number 5800-24.
I make a motion to adopt resolution number 5800-24.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt resolution 5800-24. Any discussion on those motions? Councilor Sacco?
Aye.
Councilor Reyes?
Yes.
Councilor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilor Brooks?
Aye.
Council President Pratt?
Aye.
Chair votes yes. That resolution is adopted. Whew. 2 more.
I make a motion to adopt resolution 5801-24.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for resolution 5801-24. Councilor Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilor Brooks?
Aye.
Councilor Sacco?
Aye.
Councilor Reyes?
Yes.
Council President Pratt?
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Resolution is adopted. Finally, resolution number 5802-24.
Make a motion to adopt resolution number 5802-24.
Second.
Dueling seconds, all right. Motion and 2 seconds for resolution 5802-24. Councilor Sacco?
Aye.
Councilor Reyes?
Yes.
Councilor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Councilor Brooks?
Aye.
Council President Pratt?
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Resolution 5802-24 is adopted. Yay. Thank you, guys. All right. That brings us to items removed from consent. We had none. Moving on, council communications. Any communications for this evening? Council Brooks.
Some people know that I have Greek heritage here, and I just wanted to acknowledge not only our own fire season that's happening right now, that's very early, but also the people of Greece that are dealing with wildfires on several islands and the mainland very near Athens. And all the pages I'm on ask everyone to keep them in their prayers. Thanks.
Other communications. Do I have a move for adjournment?
So moved.
All those in favor of adjournment for this evening, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you for joining us tonight. Have a very good evening.